I was not prepared for all the stuff that happened in this episode.
I found out about your secret. Captain Freeman is your mom.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Does Captain Mommy give you sweet little Captain kisses?
Where's new button? Optimistic mode? This is gonna be great!
There she is! The little robot exocom! I analyzed all Federation languages and calculated a mathematically perfect name. What is it? Peanut Hamper! I love it!
Hi, I'm Phil. Welcome to my channel where I talk about all the geeky pop culture that I enjoy, including things like Doctor Who, the MCU, and of course Star Trek. We have been reviewing on this channel every episode of Star Trek Lower Decks, and we are finally at the season finale. It's been a long road getting from there to here, but we are... Oh wait, no, that is the wrong Star Trek show. But there was a reference to it in this episode, so let's... I think it passes. I'll be talking non-spoilers for the first 5 minutes or so, and then we'll go on to spoilers as usual. So, I just have to say, this was such a great episode. I think, and there's always the chance of recency bias when you say this, I think. When you come straight out of watching an episode and go in reviewing it, without even a second watch, there's always the chance of succumbing to recency bias, which, if you don't know, is the fact that something that you've seen, if you're talking about what's your favourite of something, the one of it that you've seen most recently is going to be at the forefront of your head, and therefore it might jump out at you as being your favourite. So there's always a chance of that whenever you say, this episode was my favourite so far. But generally, I've taken a couple of hours to think about it, and I genuinely think this is my favourite episode of the series so far. It just had so much going into it, and I generally cannot think of one criticism of it. I mean, maybe as I go along something will pop in my head, but I can't think of anything that I have to criticise about this episode. It had a great opening. It was funny. This had the joke in... I mean, there was one moment in this episode, which we'll get to in the spoilers, that has gotten my biggest laugh out of any moment of the series so far. There was real impact. The stakes were raised in this episode, more than they have been probably for the entire series. And that's saying something, because we've had the ship almost destroyed before, but the stakes were raised, and there were real implications of things that happened in this episode that will affect going forward. It really felt like a season finale that, didn't rely on, falling back on the tropes of, we're going to have a big universe-threatening threat, looking at you, Picard, for something that should be a very character-driven moment in the series. A series like this, it needs to be about the characters, and arguably Picard should have been the same, where this uses a situation where the stakes are a lot higher than they've been in the rest of the series, admittedly, but in a good way, and I really think it worked. It was also a really fitting culmination of all of the story arcs that we've had running through the series in terms of the characters' own personal journeys and their arcs and where they end up. At the end of this, it kind of feels very fitting. You can see the results of the character growth that we've been getting in various characters. You can see the culmination. Not the completion necessarily, because I'm sure some of these arcs will continue into future seasons as well, but it's just there as a kind of fitting sort of end of chapter point for these people. So yeah, I really like this episode, and that is pretty much all I can say without going into spoilers. So let's talk about a bit more in depth now. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the episode, go away, watch it now if you have the means to, and watch it because it is so good and you're missing out if you haven't. Obviously, if you haven't seen any of the series so far, go watch that first, because like I said, this is the culmination of lots of arcs in terms of personal growth and stuff for the characters, and you won't get the full impact of that unless you've seen the rest of the series. Hopefully there's going to be some distribution deals for the rest of the world outside of America and Canada soon. Oh god, so what to talk about first, because there is so much going on in this episode, but there's so much going on that in any other episode, if not handled correctly, that could be too much. There could be too much going on, potentially, because there's so much. But I think it's handled really well. It transitions from one thing to another in such a good way that you don't feel like you're just constantly being bombarded. And I felt that slightly with some of the earlier episodes, maybe the first one particularly, that it kind of felt like nothing had the time to land. I think I said that in my review, that, they were quick, snappy scenes and they didn't kind of give them enough time to land. I think they've gotten over that. Either that or I've just gotten used to the style of it. I don't know. Like I said, unless you go back and rewatch the whole series, it's going to be hard to distinguish what your feelings are because you've sat through them all now, as opposed to, sort of objectively looking back at them as a whole. There's a bit of recency bias in there, but I think this handles moving between, cramming lots of stuff in a lot better than the earlier episodes did. The opening was good for many reasons. I think it went on for quite a while. I did notice that, and it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think I found that it went on for quite a while. I noticed that. I don't know if anybody else did, but it kind of felt like, I suddenly realised at that point, we haven't had the credits yet. But it didn't bother me. It didn't bother me at all. I was perfectly happy with that. It's just something I observed. We got to revisit a planet from the original series episode. And it's just for this little beginning intro bit, but I like the fact that they revisited that planet. We got some lovely sort of Easter egg references in this. It's basically, I can't remember the name of the episode, but it's the TOS episode. We'll get back to the TOS in a minute, but the TOS episode where the local fairly primitive population have start worshipping a computer, and the computer tells them what to do and bans creativity and all of that. And in this Lower Decks episode, they reverted to worshipping the computer again, despite the fact that Kirk and Spock came along, 200 years ago now, 100 years ago, 100 and something years ago now, and freed them from the tyranny of the computer before. Now they've gone back to just wanting to worship it. And it's played for laughs. It's not anything like a serious threat at all. But it's just a nice little reference, and we get some lovely jokes about the original series in there. We get the inclusion of they obviously mention Kirk and Spock having done this mission many years before. Ransom brings out a pad, and it's got the Kirk and Spock, but it's a screenshot or a recreation from the sort of style of the animated series, the original animated series from just after the original series. And it's lovely that they sort of wrapped that in and sort of canonized that in some ways. They've been dropping little references to the original animated series throughout this show. That's nice. We also get Ransom referring to that era of Starfleet as the TOS era, which is of course what we all refer to the originals. It stands for the original series to us. So when he first said it, I was like, wait, how is this gonna be what? And then he explained that to the captain, because the captain also said, what are you talking about? And to him, he calls it the TOS era because it stands for those old scientists like Spock and McCoy, etc. So I thought that was really nice little fan service moment there. We also get to see the fruits of the character development in this opening sequence, where Mariner is doing her usual thing of, breaking protocol to help the innocent people of a civilization they are visiting. She's giving out art supplies to children, something that she shouldn't be doing according to Starfleet protocol, but that she's going to do anyway because she thinks it's the right thing to do and wants to encourage them to be creative and not listen to computer overlords. And Boimler comes along and she expects him to start listing regulations and why she shouldn't be doing that, but he joins in. And it's a really nice moment. It shows the character growth of Boimler throughout the series, that he has gone from this very stick to the rules on all instances no matter what, to it's okay to break the occasional rule. This is also the moment where he confronts her with the fact that he knows that the captain is her mum. That's the kind of cliffhanger we got at the end of the last episode, where he found out about that through his holodeck program. Now he knows, and he is sort of mentioning that to her. I think the trailers did this a little bit of a disservice in the fact that it made him look a little bit more like he was being really mean about it, because they just showed the bit where he was teasing her about the kissing in the trailers. Like her mum kiss her to bed, kiss her at night, tuck her into bed, that kind of thing. But actually, he approaches it in a really sort of like, look, I know it's great. You know, this is good. We can get away with stuff now. You know, you can help us get out of situations a lot with the captain, a lot easier. But what he doesn't know is, of course, the bridge crew can all hear through the comms badge. And so the captain is panicking. Mariner is panicking. They get beamed directly to the... beamed? What? They get beamed directly to the bridge. And that's when we finally go into the opening credits. I thought it was a really strong opening scene. It carries over the sort of cliffhanger from last week, gives us some payoff on the character development of Boimler. And it was very funny, full of Easter egg references. Overall, really strong opening to an episode. Immediately after the opening credits, we get a view on another ship, which does look very similar to that. It seems like most of the time when we get other ships in this show, they're just using the same models, which is understandable from a budgetary point of view that they have. I suppose it's similar to, you know, often we'd have another Galaxy class show up, or in the original series, they would all be Constitution class ships that showed up when they met another Starfleet ship. You know, it's a money-saving thing, and fine. Okay, we get another captain, and they get attacked and destroyed by this mysterious alien force. And this, for me, really raised the stakes, because it was quite a dramatic scene once they had a little bit of comedy at the front, which, by the way, can I just say, I laughed so much at the plastic on the new, because it's a brand new ship. The captain is very happy that she's got a brand new ship and it's all pristine. And she makes a comment about somebody having started to peel off the protective plastic off of the console on her chair. And I thought, that's my wife. Because my wife loves leaving the plastic on on electronic gadgets and things, and I'm the type of person that will whip that plastic off the minute I get it, because it annoys me that there's this thing that you can tell is on there that is only meant to be there to protect it in the packaging and while it's in the shop and stuff, and that people just leave it on there, and you know, eventually it's going to start peeling at the edge and it'll look rubbish. And on touch screens, anyway, I'm going off on one here, but I am probably the person that would have taken that off, and the captain is definitely my wife in this situation. She would leave stuff on all the time. So for very personal reasons, I found that very funny. But the ship is attacked, and like I said, the tension, the comedy gets left to one side, and it actually feels like there are going to be real stakes in this episode, because the ship is completely destroyed by this menacing alien ship that comes in. So I think it did a really good job of setting up some stakes for the season finale, which I think, you know, you don't need world-ending, universe-ending stakes for a show like this, but you do need stakes, and this set them up really well. So then back on the Cerritos, I like how they handled the comedy of everyone now on the ship knowing that Mariner is the captain's daughter. Everyone starts sucking up to her, going to her to, oh, can you pass this on to the captain? Someone who she went on a date with kind of comes up to her and says, can you pass these ideas on to the captain? You get the senior bridge crew start sucking up to her. And then the funniest moment, I think, for me, and maybe this reveals some of my juvenile humour, but the biggest laugh this show has gotten out of me so far happens when Mariner and the captain are in her office, in the captain's office, and the second in command, Ransom, comes in, and I'm going to get the exact quote, because the captain tells him to carry on going hard on you, and he see, I can't even do it now without cracking up. He says, "I'm only hard on you when you make me hard." I'm sorry, juvenile humour, I know, but that got me laughing so much that I had to actually pause the episode to finish laughing because I was missing stuff. And even now, it makes me giggle. I think it was just so expertly written in terms of if you're going to go for that type of humour, and I realise that type of humour is not everyone's cup of tea, but if it's pulled off well, if it's written well, and if it's acted well, and the timing on this was perfect, the timing and the delivery of the lines was perfect, just had me cracking up. It is the most I have laughed throughout this series. Now, just to take a sidetrack from the main plot slightly, the sort of B plot of this episode is Tendi and somebody that she's introducing to the ship for the first time, a new crew member. And that new crew member is this little kind of droid thing, floating droid thing. We've seen them in, I think it was a TNG episode before, but it's, you know, painted like it's got a uniform on, it has a personality, and it's cool. It calls itself Peanut Hamper because of some, you know, it did a mathematical calculation on what would be the best name to have, and apparently it came up Peanut Hamper. But I really liked the kind of interaction between the two of them. The entrance to that, and Peanut Hamper's first lines as they leave the shuttle and is greeted by Tendi, who has been assigned to be her sort of introductory person, like Boimler was to her when she got in. It very much mirrors that scene from the first episode when Tendi comes on board for the first time, and even some of the lines were exactly the same. And I think that's another thing this episode does really good. It calls back to lots of things in the series, in the previous 9 episodes that we've had running through, not only through character development, but also just little references to things that have happened, like this, like the fact that Peanut Hamper is basically Tendi from episode 1 and has that enthusiasm that she had, says some of the same lines that she had in that episode. Nice little reference back there, and we get other references back to the series as it's gone through later on in the episode as well, and at other points in the episode. So we get this this character who initially is a bit useless because it can't really pick up things, but then proves that it does an amazing job as a medical thing. And we think that, you know, it's kind of portrayed that Tendi's going to be a bit jealous of this because that's her role and she thinks she's going to be usurped. But actually, because it's Tendi and she's just such a warm-hearted person, she's actually really pleased for the droid thing, and that she's played a part in helping her find her niche and what she's good at, or what it's good at. We'll come back to Peanut Hamper later because I think Peanut Hamper also, it's weird, Peanut Hamper saying that, plays into a theme that I think has run through this episode, through this series, throughout the whole 10 episodes as well, a bit later on, but we need to talk about the main plot first to get there. And that's that the Cerritos obviously arrives to help Cerritos? I've forgotten the name of the ship. Anyway, arrives to respond to the distress signal from the other ship, and then gets attacked themselves by the same ship. And it turns out that they are I've forgotten the name of the race. Let me look it up. I can't find it. Plank something? Plankers? Plankoids? I can't remember. Let me know in the comments. I'll remember it as soon as I stop recording. Anyway, they were a villain from the TNG episode that lured people with distress signals to try, and in the TNG episode they kidnapped Geordi to try and make him work for them. But then the Enterprise shows up and immediately overpowers them, basically. And even with a light show, they're pretty dumb, these aliens. They're not the most intelligent people in the world. But here, they have actually managed to capture loads of ships and really beefed up their ships since the TNG era, and can destroy Starfleet ships like that because they've stolen all this technology from other races. And it plays into something that the captain at the end of the episode points out, and I think it's a very good point, a commentary on how Starfleet works, in the fact that they often will visit or encounter an alien race, deal with whatever the situation is, and then not really think about them again, and kind of just dismiss them, and not think of people as a threat, even though, because the first time they met them they weren't a threat. Well, they might become a threat later on. And it also ties into the opening as well. You know, they thought Kirk and Spock went to this planet, solved the situation of the locals worshipping the computer and the computer being tyrannical, and then left. And Starfleet kind of just went, we don't need to go back there. They'll be fine. And it's a nice commentary on how Starfleet operates, I think. But because these aliens are now pretty beefy and with beefy ships that can actually destroy Starfleet ships, they overpower the Cerritos quite quickly. And what we find is the team has to work with the bridge crew as well, which I thought was nice, all working together to... it's a nice thing, even though the bridge crew are background characters in the series, to wrap them into this episode, I think gave them an important role in this episode, was very important. And what we get is, first of all, let's get back to Peanut Butter, because oh no, let's do Badgie first, because remember that episode with Badgie? I loved Badgie. He was just so funny. That he makes a return, and this is what I mean about referencing back to previous episodes. This is another episode where something that happened in a previous episode has a payoff here as well. Rutherford uses Badgie to create a virus that they can install on the ship, on the alien ship, to disable it. However, to do that, he has to disable the safety features of the holodeck, and then comes out evil Badgie again. I thought it was quite funny that they had this returning character in the same way that you had the returning Moriarty in TNG, this kind of evil holodeck character that they have to kind of rely on, but they can't really trust. Anyway, he gets the viruses, and they realise that Peanut Butter is the most qualified to take it over. It can fly in space, doesn't have to breathe, can take the virus in its core memory and just take it over. And then Peanut Butter's like, nah, I don't want to do that. That sounds like dangerous. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to teleport out of here. Yeah, bye. And this ties into a theme that has been running throughout the series so far, and that is what it means to be Starfleet. It's come up in various different episodes. What it means to be truly Starfleet, not just a member of the, Federation, but what it means to embody the ideals of Starfleet. And Peanut, what was it? Hamper? Whatever his name is, clearly is shown here to not be Starfleet. Juxtaposed immediately with Rutherford, who's then like, right, I'm going to install it in my head and I will go over and get it. And so he does that, and he goes, in fact, he's carried to the shuttle pod by the security guy. Oh, Shax, Lieutenant Shax, the Bajoran security guy. He picks him up and carries him and goes over in the shuttle with him. Sort of protects him while he's uploading this. Of course, Badgie betrays them and still wants to kill his father, Rutherford. And he sets the virus to also explode the ship. Badgie does. So Rutherford then makes... Oh, I missed something. I missed talking about how Tendi reacts to Rutherford going over, because that's important too. I've been shipping the two of them the whole time, Rutherford and Tendi. And here, I think it carries on that development slightly. You get to see her real concern, they're all his friends, but the fact that she really shows worry and thinks he shouldn't go over, I think hints at the continuing development of their relationship. But anyway, so he goes over and sacrifices himself because or with the plan to sacrifice himself, potentially, because he is Starfleet. And Shax goes with him. But Shax saves his life, pushes him out into the shuttle pod and to safety, and stays behind and gets blown up. And this is what I mean about this episode having stakes as well, because we lose a main character, and we really feel for that. Shax is effectively a kind of background character. The bridge crew all are kind of not the main focus of this series, and yet still, the loss of him was very impactful, and it shows that they are willing to make changes that will be permanent and that will affect things going forward. And I really like that, because an animated series like this, animated series have a tendency of maintaining status quo throughout many, many series. And, you think about things like The Simpsons and Family Guy, they very rarely change any of the main status quo. And when they do, it's a really big thing. You might occasionally have a background character die or something, and then the occasional reference back to them. But it very rarely happens, and it almost never happens in the first season. So I'm very glad they did that, and it's sad to see him go. I really loved him as a character, but I think it was a brave and right decision for the creators to do. So they destroy this one ship, but Unfortunately, 3 more show up. So they're still in a lot of trouble. And then, punch the air moment, the Titan arrives with Captain Riker and his... Is she the first officer on that? I'm not sure. But his first officer slash wife, Diana Troy. Nice cameos there. Come and save the day, destroy the ships, rescue the team, rescue everyone, and we get some lovely little references and cameos. Riker references back to his jazz and stuff, like of jazz, and his fascination with watching Captain Archer on the original Enterprise and the holodeck and interacting with those. That's referenced as well. Lots of really nice references there. Interestingly, the Titan is still using the grey uniforms. That's the mind boggles about the way uniforms work in Star Trek. I'm gonna have to make a video about it at some point. Still, which is my favourite uniform, by the way. So it was quite nice to see that again, and yeah, it was really good. It was nice. It felt like very much a season finale thing to do, but one that wasn't just out of nowhere, because both Riker and the Titan have been referenced several times throughout the series. So it kind of felt like they'd laid the seeds to this and had built up to it. Their friend that ended up being a useless idiot in one of the episodes got transferred to the Titan before being fired. So nice little tie-ups there as well. And then we've got, tying back to what I said earlier about how the commentary on how Starfleet operates and the fact that they leave stuff and leave planets, deal with whatever the situation is, and then just kind of leave them and don't check up on them enough. I think there was a line in it, a quote in it, which I thought was really good. We can't just assume people will continue to do the right thing a generation down the road. Now that's both a commentary on how Starfleet operates, but I think also a commentary on our world as well. We assume that a country that may have been good and may have done good things in the past is therefore intrinsically good for all time. I mean, we know logically that isn't true, but what we can't, and right here, we can't assume people will continue being good just because they've been good before. The next generation might not be good. The next generation might turn your society in a very worrying direction. And I think that is both an interesting thing within the Star Trek universe to look at, but also an interesting thing to think about in our own world as well, especially at the moment. So, as I said before, this is a really, really good episode. My favourite, I think. We get some really nice development of the characters and seeing how we've had that development throughout the series, I think, especially of Mariner and Boimler. But we get to see the culmination of that, which is really good and a strong point. Boimler at the end... Mariner, let's deal with Mariner first. So Mariner comes to this kind of understanding with her mum that maybe her way of doing things, Mariner's way of doing things, do have their uses sometimes. And maybe the captain can use that when she, as the captain who has to follow the book, might be in a situation where that might be useful. Having someone that might go off book might be useful. So that's nice in there that they've kind of had this growth in their relationship. Then we get Boimler, who, as we already know from the beginning of the episode, has had some personal growth throughout the series. And I think that personal growth leads to the fact that he gets that promotion at the end and is offered a place on the Titan. You know, it's possible to look at that as him going, oh, okay, so now he's abandoning his friends. But I think Mariner is a little miffed at him for taking the promotion. But I think knowing that that's always been something that's important to him, most of his friends are going to be okay with it in the end. And although it might sting a little that she's left, her friend has left her. And we do get that nice moment earlier on in the episode where Boimler says, I don't want you to go because you're my friend. And she does, though she takes the mick out of him for saying that, she also has a little smile. It's nice. So it's understandable. Look, Boimler has more way to go in his character development, I think. But I don't think it negates the journey he's been on so far. And it leaves us in an interesting position for the start of season 2. Are we going to get him somehow ending up back on the Cerritos, or are we going to get a few episodes with him on the Titan? That could be interesting. I'm definitely up for seeing more of the Titan's adventures. I would definitely like to see that. So I imagine we might start with him on the Titan at the beginning of next season, but something will bring him back to the Cerritos and he will end up staying there again. I guess now he's got a promotion, he's not lower decks anymore. How does that fit in? Will he get a demotion? Or will the concept of the show expand slightly? I don't know, but I'm looking forward to finding out. This, as I said, is my favourite episode so far. I will do a ranking. I might go back and rewatch every episode and then do a ranking of the season overall, just to refresh my memory of some of the episodes and to try and dispel that recency bias a bit. But look, let me know what you thought of it and in the comments below. And next week, Discovery is back, so I will start my reviews of that in place of Lower Decks. So don't go anywhere, stick around, hit that subscribe button, share this video, like it, all that jazz, because I will continue to do Star Trek content on this channel for the foreseeable future. So hopefully see you then for Discovery reviews, and yeah, thanks for watching.